IB Nation, welcome back to another edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Trevor, we are one day away from the first ever college football playoff game to be played on a college campus, and it will be played at the University of Notre Dame inside Notre Dame Stadium. This is what it's all about, Trevor. All the offseason work, all the ups and downs this team had to go through the regular season. It all boils down to creating this opportunity for yourselves as a football team to go out there and play for a championship. And that journey starts tomorrow night when the Irish take on the Indiana Hoosiers. Notre Dame Nation is fired up, Trevor. What say you?
Man, I can't, to be honest with you, I can't put into words how excited I am. I mean, I'm a big guy with storylines, and you kind of look at this Notre Dame football team and the journey that it took for them to get there. And you cap that all off with the first ever home college football playoff game being in South Bend, Indiana. I don't know if you can write it up better than that. You know what I mean? It's fitting after what this team had to go through, after what some of the players and what some of the coaches had to go through to get to this point. I know I'm not on the team, but I'm sure a lot of other people feel similar. Like I feel like I was a part of the ride, right? Like I felt the highs after Texas A&M and the lowest of lows after the Northern Illinois loss. And then it was a slow rebuild back to where they're at right now. You cap it off with a 14-point road win over USC, and man, all leading to this.
I'll be honest with you, Trevor, and this is going to be a little mini soapbox for just about a minute. One of the frustrations I have in listening to players talk and former Notre Dame players talk on Twitter, they get real mouthy about what Notre Dame fans should or shouldn't feel and want to be like, hey, guy, that passion that they have that you guys love to mock is why you're on scholarship. It's why you're going to be getting NIL money. It's why anyone listens to your podcast. It's why anyone listens to our podcast, because they have a passion for that program, and you need to stop telling them how to think and how to feel because they're on this ride with you, right? They're going to love you when you do well, and they're going to hold you accountable when you don't, and that's part of the journey, right? I mean, if a fan boos you, you should be more mad at yourself for whatever mistake you made that led to your team not winning a football game than the otherwise. And that is a little bit of a frustration I have, Trev, and it made me think of what you just said, is because everybody in this chat, everybody listening has been on this ride with this football team. No, you're not the ones that are out there making the tackles and making the blocks and making the throws and making the catches. And yes, there are absolutely some people on social media that act like absolute idiots in how they treat players. I've said, don't tweet at players that negative things. That's not what you should be doing as a fan. But that passion, the fact that they care about whether or not the jerseys are going to be black or blue or green, that passion is why millions of people watch your football games. It's why tens of thousands of people show up to every home game that you play. Sometimes hundreds of thousands of people will show up to road games that you play. Why they buy your jerseys, why they buy your gear, why they do all these things, why they pay $10 for a drink at the game, why they pay hundreds of dollars to park at a game, is because they have that joy, that love, that passion for this program that I wish players would understand more. I feel like the older players back in the day understood that and they embraced it more. And they looked at the bad fans as kind of like, that's not the majority, that's the minority. And I think in some ways, social media has soured that relationship a little bit between fans and players of a lot of different programs. And what players need to understand is the vast majority of fans are not like the people that send you hate crap on Twitter. They're not. They support you through and through. But that's the journey that you all have been on this year with this team, that we've all been on with this team. And that's what makes being a fan fun, is because you get to enjoy the highs and the highest of the highs. You get to kind of feel the pain of those lows, right? But to get back to this team on September 7th, we kind of woke up on that September 7th, Trevor, and you thought about where this football team was and who this Notre Dame football team is going to be. And we said to ourselves, boy, this team, path to the playoffs, super easy now because of that win last week. By the end of September 7th, you're thinking, I don't know if this team's going to have a shot to make the college football playoff. And because you're now in a one and done, win and go, lose, win or go home scenario for the rest of the season. And to see these players respond the way they did to that moment, not just the next week where they destroyed Purdue 66-7, but the next week and the next week and the next week and the next week. And to see how this team came together and whatever the reason for why they came together, whoever the villain was for this football team. It doesn't matter because they came together as a team, had to overcome a lot of adversity to get here. Now you're here. Now the opportunity is in front of you. Now the Northern Illinois game does not matter to you anymore. You don't have – it doesn't matter. The Purdue game doesn't matter. The USC game doesn't matter. The Louisville game doesn't matter. All that was done to get you here. Now it's about what you do moving forward. And this team, boy, I tell you what, it has been fun to watch this last month, Trev, but now they're in a situation where it's like, okay, now it's time to be the best version of yourself. Marcus Freeman preaches that all the time. Every single day, every single rep, it's about being the best version of yourself. It's not about outcome results. It's process related. And this team has stuck to that. And if they can stick to that here on Friday night, you feel like there's going to be some good results. And that's what I'm excited for. And we're going to talk about those today, Trev. We're going to talk about the keys to victory for this Notre Dame football team in all phases of the game. We're going to talk about, we're going to give our predictions, hand out some game balls. And of course, we'll be joined by Bill Bender from Sporting News, who will be with us to preview the other 3 playoff games that were going to happen on Saturday, because they're all huge. Let's be honest, they're all huge, but there's a reason why this game is being played on Friday night as the standalone game, because it is still Notre Dame. It is still Notre Dame. And I can't wait. I know you'll be there. I'll be there. It's going to be a lot of fun, Trev, and I'm ready to get going to these keys.
Yeah, man, I can't wait. I can't say that enough. I'm going to sound like a broken record by the end of today's show, but I'm excited to dive into it today with you, Bryan. We're going to talk and cover a lot of good things. So I'm ready, man.
So let's get into some of the keys, Trev. And obviously there's a lot of different aspects of it. There's special teams keys, which in this game, it's very simple. Do no harm, right? It's do no harm. Control field position. If you get a chance to make a field goal, got to nail it. Got to make your extra points. Got to get your punts off, right? You got to field the punch. Can't turn the ball over. All those type of things. So we'll get those special teams out of the way. Do no harm is the great loose emoji always said. The other one is, Trev, is obviously the turnover battle in a game like this, where you have 2 very evenly matched football teams statistically in a lot of different ways. You've got to go out there and you've got to get the football. When you get look, you and I have broken down a lot of film. There's opportunities for team to get the football from Curtis Work. Not a lot of people have been able to take advantage, but there's opportunities there. Notre Dame has to do that. You have to do what you've done all year. It's just, in this regard, be what you have been all year, which is huge at forcing turnovers and great at protecting the football. For the most part, great at protecting the football. You've got to continue to do that all season, Trev. Notre Dame has forced a turnover in every single game since that September 7th Saturday afternoon inside Notre Dame Stadium. They forced at least 1 turnover in every game since then, and they forced at least turnovers in all but 2 games since then. And in the 2 games they didn't force 2 turnovers, they still won by 42 and 35. And so this is a team that's been great at forcing turnovers. That has to continue. You've got to protect the football. Obviously, those are going to be big keys. And then the last thing, Trev, as I kick it to you, is this one. In order to win a playoff game and continue to put yourself in position to play for a championship, survive and advance, adversity is going to come in some form or fashion, whether it's a mistake being made, whether it's a turnover, whether it's an injury, no matter what it is, a lack of focus, a missed tackle, a dropped interception, something is going to happen to this football team that will be an adverse situation. The team that best responds to adversity, short fields, backed up, whatever the case may be, the team that responds best to adversity is going to have the best opportunity to put themselves in position to win this football game. And for Notre Dame, it needs to be them if they're going to win this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll kind of start where you did. I mean, special teams just execute. That's the name of the game. You don't have to go out and start nailing 55-yard field goals and returning punts for touchdowns. Again, wouldn't be upset if either of those happened, but just do your job. Just execute. To your point, do no harm. For winning the turnover battle, for the most part, Notre Dame's offense has done a pretty good job of protecting the football this year. Especially Riley Leonard making the majority of the time pretty good decisions. But those really blatant bad decisions can't be present. Can't be. But in an ideal world, yeah, sure, every football game is played perfectly, which is why I'm really glad that you included respond to adversity. And you go through and you look at the opportunities that Notre Dame has had as a team to respond to adversity this year, right? Big picture, macro view. You look at how they responded from September 7th. But then if you start to dive into individual games, right? I think back to Louisville. You muff the opening kickoff. September 28th, you might let them punch in a touchdown on a short field. Playoffs, you got to do everything that you can to force a field goal, right? You have to do what you can with the opportunities that you do. You fast forward to USC. Riley Leonard throws a bad interception. The defense, I believe, forced a 4-and-out and a turnover on downs, if not a punt. So you're going to have to do everything that you can to maximize the opportunity you have when you have the opportunity to respond to adversity, right? Because it's a fool's dream to sit back and think that this game is going to go perfectly for Notre Dame. You have a hungry 11-1 football team coming in that believe that when they step onto the turf, they're going to be the best field out, or they're going to be the best team out there. They firmly believe that. And so you're going to have to find a way to respond to adversity, whether it be, if the defense doesn't get the start that you need to. You need that offense from Louisville. You need that offense from USC. You need that offense from Army. You know what I mean? And on the flip side of that coin, if, the offense comes out and sputters, it might be a little bit exhausting, but it's like, hey, defense, we need you. Defense, you got to step up right now and give the offense time to get their feet under them. So, they haven't played a game in 3 weeks. And like we've talked about all season long, they're a rhythm-based offense. So it's unrealistic to think that they're going to play a perfect game. So you're going to have to do everything in your power you can to respond to the adversity when it comes across your plate.
And that's the reality of playing good football teams, Trevor. Mm-hmm. I mean, look, I don't care how well Christian Gray and Leonard Moore play on Friday night. They're going to get beat on a play. It happens. And that's why Marcus Freeman preaches one play at a time. Because if you don't preach that, then all of a sudden that lingers and that snowballs into that next play. That's a form of adversity in a game. As you have that missed tackle that resulted in a 20-yard gain. What do you do the next time? Do you try to, okay, now I've got to go make up for it by doing something outside of the framework of what I'm asked to do, which then leads to another mistake? Do I then put all this pressure on myself? It's about who handles that adversity the best. And sometimes it just means, dude, move on. We're good. Move on. I got you. And sometimes it's somebody else picking you up. If one of the receivers drops a ball, it's up to Riley Leonard to say, hey, man, get your head up. Don't worry about that. I'm coming right back to you. We've seen him do that multiple times this year. When guys drop balls, comes right back to him, like either the next play or the next series. That's his way of saying, hey, dude, don't sweat it. I got you. We got you. And then, of course, Mike Denbrock has to call the plays to give that guy an opportunity. And so the things you look at is who's going to step up and fill that void, who's going to step up and make that play, who's going to step up and replace the guy that goes down, whatever the case may be. And the team that does the best job of that is the one that's going to win. It's the one that's going to have the best opportunity to win, right? Because all those things, there's other things that factor into it, but it's going to give you the best chance, the best foundation to win this football game. And so far, the last 10 games, Notre Dame has been a great team at responding to adversity. Because we talk a lot about how they've dominated the last, 10 games and they've won by X number of points and those type of things. But it hasn't always been smooth sailing, Trevor. Like Notre Dame ended up pounding Georgia Tech pretty good. But that game was 7-0, right? At the end of the first quarter. Notre Dame was not playing very well in that game. You had thrown in interception. Riley Leonard had thrown an interception that had allowed them to move the ball down the field. I mean, you think about that Miami game and how right away, after all the struggles that Notre Dame has had, they had put themselves in a really bad spot, right? I mean, a really bad spot where, your defense forces a punt. And what was it? They fumbled a ball, right? Trying to remember how they got that that next possession. I believe Notre Dame fumbled a punt, right? And then
I think that gave them Faison, maybe.
Yeah. So, I mean, you had those situations, and then what happens? Who steps up? It's Christian Gray and Junior Tuihalamaka to force an interception. You think about, the Louisville game, you opening kickoff. You're thinking, okay, this is your chance. You get things rolling, and boom, fumbled kickoff on the first kickoff of the game. And you're thinking, here we go again, right? Nope. Defense gives up a touchdown, and you're like, well, there it goes, right? And what happens? Offense immediately responds. Goes down the field, scores a touchdown. Next play on defense, blown assignment by a linebacker, quarterback runs. Well, okay, guess this defense isn't locked in today. Guess this elite defense isn't here to play today. Leonard Moore, elite hustle and speed, comes up behind, knocks the ball out of the quarterback's hands. All of a sudden, a negative turns into a positive, right? Didn't quit on the play like, oh, man, whose fault is that? It wasn't my fault. It's like, oh, I got to go make a play. What does the offense do? Takes it right down the field and scores a touchdown. Right, we saw that, and then from that moment on, fell behind Stanford 7-0, scored the next 49 points. Right, I mean, it hasn't been always smooth sailing where they just kind of rolled the ball out there and it was no problem, and they went out and just, put that team away and just dominate. I mean, Virginia was a little bit sloppy early in that game. I mean, your first defensive possession against Florida State, you allow them to go right down the field and kick a field goal. It hasn't always been super, super easy. They've made it look easier because of how well they respond to those circumstances. And now you've got to continue rolling with that as we get into the postseason.